This episode of season 2 actually starts out with a flashback, and that's something that I really didn't expect. We get to see one of the first few days of when Kenny, his dad, and his mom first arrived at this place. We find out that the reason they weren't living together in the first season and why his dad was living at the hospital was because it's way harder for him to open the door while he's sleeping at the basement of the hospital than it is at the normal houses that are back at the town. The night before this flashback, it's mentioned that there was some sort of incident where somebody or all of them almost got killed. That's a bit unclear, but somebody almost died. Anyways, after all of that, Kenny goes outside the hospital and he starts crying, and while he's leaning on the railing, Boyd shows up at the hospital and starts talking to Kenny. Kenny tells Boyd that his dad almost opened the door because he was convinced that the monsters were his brothers and that they were outside telling him to let them in. Boyd tells us that everyone's scared and confused in Fromville and that it's really important in these situations to have people to look up to, people who will give us hope to get by day after day after day. Boyd tells him that he needs his help and asks Kenny to be his deputy because he needs someone to watch his six, to keep an eye out on him, a partner. It's just always better to have a partner as a cop, Anyways, cut to present day. Kenny's running in the streets and he's looking for Boyd, and he finds him and tells him that he needs to show him something. Of course, it's obvious to us as the viewer that he's talking about how he found Sarah in Father Cattry's basement. Julie has a conversation with Tabitha, and Julie asks her mom if she's been having visions. And thank God, man, thank God. Tabitha tells her that yes, she is still having these visions. She's still seeing those children. I'm actually really happy about the way these two characters have been behaving in the past 2 episodes because they've actually been communicating, and that is really good. That is really good. Tabitha says she needs to go talk to Jim about some things, so she ends up going to the hospital, but Jim is nowhere to be found. He isn't in the hospital, so where the hell did he go? Tabitha talks to Mariel, and Mary tells her that Jim isn't there and that he already left. So that really surprised me because this guy had multiple broken ribs in the last episode, and it hasn't even been one night in the hospital itself, but he's already walking around without any crutches. I mean, this is crazy. I couldn't believe it. Anyways, Tabitha finds Jim staring at the people from the bus going through their luggage. Jim starts telling Tabitha how impossible the way this town works is, and how it's crazy that the lights aren't connected to anything, yet they still have electricity. He tells her that he believed her when she said it, but it should be impossible for that to be the case. It's impossible in the real world to have electricity without any connecting wires and whatever. You get the point. He says that when you build a roller coaster, the point is to make it seem as impossible as you possibly can, because the more impossible it seems to the rider, the stronger the reaction you're gonna get from the people who are riding it. So Jim starts thinking that this entire place was designed just to see how people would react, that it could all just be some sort of experiment. Jim tells Tabitha that the radio worked perfectly, but the person who answered the phone somehow knew that Tabitha was digging the hole in the basement at that very same moment. So Jim believes that someone is watching them somehow, but he doesn't know how, and he's also unsure if the response he got when he made that radio call was a threat or a warning. And this is interesting because I made a video about exactly this topic, that it's impossible to tell if that was meant to be a threat or if it was meant to be a warning. And this is interesting, very interesting. Jim mentions that the house collapsed shortly after that phone call, so it could be that these people did it somehow, and we don't know how yet. Bare minimum, it means these people can somehow see their movements and their actions. Tabitha asks Jim if someone else heard the radio call, and the way she said it made me think she was thinking Jim is hearing voices in the same way that she's seeing visions, but no. Jim goes and asks Donna about the call, and Donna confirms that that she had it. So more than likely it was real, unless both of them are hallucinating. That's just crazy. That would just be crazy. But anyways, Donna confirms that she had it, so it's real. Jim talks about it like he wants to tell people about it, but Donna reminds her that they don't know who the fuck those people are or what the fuck their goals are. She says with the way the lights were exploding and the house collapsed after they made that phone call, it could have been caused by those guys who were watching. They don't know who those guys are. Donna says that they got people's hopes up with the radio, but they ended up disappointing them, and it made morale even lower than it already was. And all of that those are some really good points, and I can't disagree with any of them. At that same moment, there's a lot of commotion happening at Colony House. So Donna ends up going to check it out, and she finds that same guy who was bullying Elgin in the bus, surprise, surprise, is beating up somebody else because that guy was going through his luggage. Donna is really pissed off about this because the rules are clear for anybody who's living at Colony House. You're going to be sharing the things that you came to Fromville with you. Anyways, that asshole guy tells Donna that this can only work if everyone doesn't touch his stuff. Donna tells him they've got a way of doing things, and he says he doesn't care. If she touches his shit, he'll smack the shit out of her. And I said it before and I'll say it again. This guy, I knew it from the first time I saw him that he's a fucking piece of shit. I knew that he was gonna cause a lot of trouble for everyone in Fromville. They really should have let him go outside of the diner so he can die. If I was Boyd or Kenny or Donna, I would have killed him myself. The last thing you need in a survival situation like this is someone instigating instability. And that's exactly what this guy is doing. So Boyd goes with Kenny to the church, and Kenny shows him Sarah in the basement. Boyd tells Kenny to go upstairs so he can talk to Sarah. Boyd says he's got 1,000 questions, and he asks her after he went into the tree, where the hell did Sarah go? She tells Boyd that she also went into the tree immediately afterwards, but that she found herself in Father Cattry's basement. She confirms that she's been here in the church. She's been here in the church all the time since the season 1 finale, which is disappointing. I definitely expected more. Anyways, Boyd asks her how she knew that what the tree was and that it could teleport people. Sarah says that the boy in white told her they'd be safe in the tree, and he also said that they made Fromland angry. But Sarah says that the boy in white isn't like the usual voices she hears. She also thinks that the boy in white is trapped in Fromland like everyone else, and that he wants to help, but he isn't sure how he can do that. And that's an interesting idea. It makes me wonder if the children Tabitha keeps seeing are the same as the boy in white, but why do they look so tattered, dirty, and injured, while the boy in white, he just looks really clean, you know? And was the kid who was trapped in the jail at the cave the same thing as the boy in white? What's stopping the monsters from just killing them like everyone else? Or are the monsters forbidden from killing children for some reason? We don't know. I don't know. Boyd tells Sarah that they need to figure out how to handle Sarah being back, but Sarah just says Boyd already knows what he has to do. That being that he has to put her in the box. Boyd says he has to talk to Kenny. Sarah realizes that Boyd hasn't told Kenny that she's responsible for what happened to his father, that she's the one who opened the door to the hospital that night, and that's why the monsters got him. Boyd tells Kenny that Sarah is connected to Fromland and that she hears voices from something in Fromland communicating to her. Boyd tells Kenny that Father Cattry knew about it and that Sarah proved to Father Cattry that the voices were legitimate because they knew things about Cattry no one else could have ever possibly known. Boyd thinks that they can use that connection to find a way out of Fromville. Kenny rightfully points out that there's no way Jim and Tabitha and everyone else were gonna let Sarah live after she tried to kill Ethan. And he says that she has to be put in the box. Boyd gets really angry and starts shouting, "No one else is going into the fucking box." And it's at that same time that Boyd starts struggling, almost like he's about to faint. The worms in his body start moving all over, and it makes me wonder if an increase in heart rate can make the worms start affecting their host somehow. I don't know. Maybe being as calm as possible is necessary to not be consumed. So Julie asks Ethan if he still wants to go visit Victor, and Julie goes with him to Colony House. After they get there, Julie sees Elgin sitting outside on the porch. Julie asks Fatima about Elgin and if That's the new guy. Julie says maybe she can talk to him because it was nice having people to do it for her when she got here. Ethan goes to Victor's room and tells him he was worried about him. Victor just says he's not very happy with Ethan because him and Jade came into his room and they stole his stuff. Ethan tells Victor he told Jade he wouldn't like it for them to be in his room, but Jade wouldn't listen to him. Victor tells Ethan that he's lucky to have a mom like Tabitha, which is very interesting because maybe his own mother was abusive to him. He tells Ethan he's drawing the things him and Tabitha saw while they were out on their adventure. Victor tells him to leave and Ethan gives him some markers, telling him he thought he might like it. He might like them because he likes drawing and all that, because he likes painting and drawing. Ethan says sorry that he made him mad, but Victor doesn't really react. He tells Victor bye and Victor doesn't even say it back. Julie talks to Elgin and tells him it feels like she's been here a lifetime. She tells Elgin that she's around anytime he may want to talk to somebody. Ethan comes out of Colony House at that same moment and says he just wants to go home. It's a very sad scene because in the last few episodes, everybody's just been ignoring Ethan and treating him like garbage. They really need to give these kids some attention. Like, what the fuck are y'all doing, man? You know? Boyd ends up at the hospital because of his collapse, and he tells Christy that his dad started having a lot of mental issues because of Parkinson's. Christy sees Boyd's spider bites but thinks they're not a big deal. She sees the gash that he got from the old man in the dungeon, but Boyd just brushes it off because he obviously doesn't want to tell people about the dungeon or the worms just yet, I guess. Christy says he can't afford to put more stress on his body, and Boyd just starts laughing and says everyone in Fromville is depressed and stressed and that no one can avoid it while they're living here. Boyd goes back to his office and he has a vision of Father Catry sitting at his chair. Boyd thinks it isn't real because he knows Catry is already dead, but he says he wants to talk about how crazy everything's been happening really is, but Father Catry just brushes it off to the side. Catry says it's a bad idea to tell Kenny about what Sarah did because after Kenny's dad died, Kenny was looking up to him like a father figure. Catry rightfully points out that Sarah is valuable and that telling Kenny would just be a horrible idea because he's gonna wanna kill Sarah. But Boyd says he's gonna tell him anyways. Jade ends up going into the bar to get a drink and he finds the bus driver. He's already there, and he complains that there's no privacy in Fromville because he was looking for a place where he can be alone. The bus driver is called Bacta because you can see that on her name tag, and she gives us some very interesting information here. She tells Jade that after they passed the tree, she had a boy telling her to turn the bus around. This is interesting because it implies that even after passing the tree, you can still escape Fromland, seemingly before you reach the town itself, which is something we didn't know until now. Kenny talks to Sarah in the basement and asks her about the voices, and that's why she tried to kill Ethan. Kenny asks Sarah how they convinced her that they were real voices and that they were not delusions, but Sarah doesn't answer. Kenny says he wants to believe her, but Sarah doesn't even try to convince him. Kenny says that his mom started thinking of Sarah almost like the daughter she never had. He asks her to convince him that she doesn't deserve to go in the box, and Sarah said she can't convince him because that's exactly what she deserves and that there's something she needs to tell him. Anyways, after the fight at Colony House, Fatima comes and talks to Donna about that guy, and Fatima says that maybe they should change the rules, but yeah, hell no. Donna rightfully points out that changing the rules for some asshole is completely ridiculous, and she picks up an axe to go and deal with him. Donna goes up to him while he's laying on the couch and tells him to get out. The guy thinks that Donna's bluffing, but she isn't having any of it, so she picks up the axe and swings it into the wall right above him. The guy gets shook and realizes that Donna isn't playing. Donna takes him to the bus and tells him that's where he's gonna be living now. Since he doesn't want to be a team player, he can stay at the bus alone with all of the blood that from the old couple that got killed a couple episodes ago, and no covering on the windows so he can see the monsters all night long. Boyd is about to go back into the church to tell Kenny that Sarah was responsible for his dad's death, and he gets approached by that old lady who was dancing in the rain. We find out that her name is Tilly. Tilly mentions that this wasn't her ideal destination and that she knows Boyd had quite an adventure as well. Tilly tells Boyd that he won't find Kenny in the church because she saw him going up to the hospital. Boyd finds Kenny just staring at the place where his father was tortured and murdered by the monsters. Kenny tells Boyd that before coming to Fromville, he never once saw his mother crying in his entire life, but ever since coming to Fromville, he hears his mom crying every single night because she thinks that her husband, Kenny's dad, is dead because she wasn't there that night to prevent him from opening the doors for the monsters. Because from their perspective, that's what they think happened. But in reality, it was Sarah who opened the doors that night. It was Sarah who killed Mr. Liu. Kenny gets angry and rightfully feels betrayed because Boyd knew what happened all along and he never told Kenny, and he was out here protecting Sarah and becoming friends with her. Kenny just throws his badge away and tells Boyd that he can watch his own fucking six. And whoa, this was actually a good episode because it felt like these characters and the plot were actually progressing, especially because of Jim's actions and him trying to connect all these pieces together. It felt like we were actually getting closer to solving the mystery, so I really liked that. I liked this episode. Something that bothered me is Sarah doesn't tell Kenny why she did what she did, that the voices told her that if she killed those people, they'd all be able to go home. If Sarah showed Kenny proof like she did with Father Cartry by telling him they know where he buried the duffel bag and what was in it, then I think Kenny would have eventually understood that finding a way out is more important than anything else, and that he could just kill Sarah once they find out how to leave this place, Anyways, I like that we're finally getting progression and the idea that there's clearly another group of humans living in Fromville, or at least monsters that are pretending to be human. But anyways, these things are getting interesting. Thank you for watching. Will Sarah actually get killed this season? Will she get put in the box? I don't know. But tell me what you think and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.